That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Hello and welcome to Content and Capable, a podcast all about following your passions while still feeling like a proper adult. My name's Sam and I'm your host. Today I spoke to Hayley from the Movie Night Crew and the Restricted section all about her experience being a queer nerd. Welcome to Content and Capable, Hayley. It's lovely to have you on.
It's lovely to be on. How are you doing, Sam?
I am awesome as always. I am powering through life with little regard to whatever else is going on around me, sometimes to the detriment of myself, sometimes not.
Well, at least you've got forward mobility.
Forward mobility is fun. Stagnant is pretty okay. Backwards is a little scary. It's like going backwards down a roller coaster. It's like, where the fuck am I going?
Oh, this isn't supposed to be happening. This isn't supposed to be happening!
It reminds me of, there's this particular ride, and it's at like almost every water park around here, where you head down some tubes and stuff, and then there's this really steep drop, and then you've got like it's almost like a cone, and then you swing from side to side, and you get towards the point of the cone and out to the other side, and always someone is sitting backwards, and so they don't get to see it, and they go, it's like really sudden, it goes pretty much vertical, so you're going pretty fast, and then all of a sudden you're going vertical and all the way down, and it's like the most terrifying thing ever. And you're like, I have no idea what just happened, but I did just drop from a height. And you can't let go. Like, yeah, it's terrifying.
Oh, I am strapped in, literally. All right, then.
Yeah. Immediately, again, on a tangent, I feel like this is a common theme. But we're here, for those who may have not heard you, Hayley, where have people found you, and what are the kind of things you do?
Yeah, I'm Hayley. If you're a podcast kind of person, I'm on a couple of them, namely the Restricted section. I'm a sometimes host. We're a critical literary analysis Harry Potter podcast, and I do mean critical. I think our new official slogan might be, "This is a Harry Potter slander podcast." I don't know if it's official, but we've been using it.
The slogan changes at least once a year. At this point.
Well, we try to keep it fresh. And the same group of me and my dumb friends also do the Movie Night Crew, which is just every week we watch a movie. There's no theme, really. There's no rhyme or reason. We just talk about it for fun. So if you're a movie person, but not like a deep core movie buff, and you just like hearing weirdos make jokes at each other, then Movie Night Crew might be the podcast for you. And outside of podcasting, I'm an editor of books.
Yeah. Book editing. Yeah.
Yep.
It seems like it's almost as if Christina grabbed all her book editor friends and made podcasts with them.
That is essentially what happened.
Yeah, it is really just what happened. So being a book editor, you have to be some amount of nerdy. And we were talking about this not before recording. We're talking about this in general. How did you get into like nerd culture?
Ooh. I'm trying to remember a time that I was not someone that would be considered nerdy. I guess it would be the first Harry Potter book. I was like, I'm old, so I was maybe 8 when they started coming out, 7 or 8. I was definitely 8 when I got the first copy. I had been grounded. Only time in my life I ever got grounded. I was watching TV when I wasn't supposed to be watching TV. So then my mom felt bad, so she took me to the bookstore and we got the first Harry Potter book. At that point, I think the first 3 were out, so it turned into a tradition of my mom reading the books to me, and like she did the voices and all of it. And I would rub her feet and we would have popcorn, and that kept up through the whole series. I think around the same time was when I was introduced to Star Wars, I might have actually been into Star Wars first. Star Wars might beat Harry Potter by a little bit. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. Because the first one came out when I was maybe 6, and then my parents had to, now we've got to show her, the first one. So, and I remember being very, very into Star Wars. But I started getting into, I guess what I would call fandom stuff now. Like, there weren't fandom communities, not that an 8-year-old could access in the early 2000s, but like thinking about it and kind of coming up with like, what if I was in Star Wars? What if I went to Hogwarts? And kind of coming up with these elaborate scenarios. And later on, I got into Lord of the Rings, and the movies were unwatchable to me when I was kind of a preteen because they were just really slow, but I thought they looked super cool, and it turned into just this weird, sick obsession with trying to understand what the fuck is going on in Lord of the Rings that has continued to this day. So yeah, I guess that would be kind of my history on that. Yeah, and obviously the love of at least Harry Potter, and the encyclopedic knowledge of that I think everyone appreciates on the restricted section has continued for a long time. Was there ever a point where you're like, oh, maybe I'm not a nerd? Or like maybe I'm not as interested in this as I once was? I do go through kind of fluctuations with stuff that I'm into. This might be just a hyper-focus, like a hyper-fixation ADHD thing, but I think a lot of people have a similar experience of you get into something, and like anytime I get into a new thing, it's with the knowledge that this might eat my life for a couple of months to a couple of years. So I have to be very selective about like, all right, am I willing to engage with this for that long? But I do kind of have, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings are kind of my 3 foundational ones that I cycle through on the longest rotation. They're like Pluto. Like, they take the longest to go around the sun of my attention span. Yeah. And then, as I discover other stuff, I'll have little nerd freakouts over something for a couple of months to maybe a year. But no, there's never been a point where I tried to not be into all of that stuff because nothing else was particularly interesting to me, and all of my friends were into a lot of the same things. So there was no reason to. Yeah. And I suppose the other aspect of this whole conversation is then, the way it intersects with other parts of your life, say, your sexual identity or, your identity, with gender and that. Is that, like, how have they played out? Ooh, that's a very good question. Because they are definitely related. Yeah. We'll probably, it's one of those things, and I'll talk to Phil the time, but like, it's one of those weird things where we're seeing it more and more. Say, the Harry Potter stuff, and when J.K. Rowling is a transphobe, and and then we're having to deal with the fact that there's this amazing series that we all know and love that is written by a terrible, terrible person who has said very mean things about people. Yeah. And how we come to terms with that with not just, not just our own sexuality, but, everyone else's. Right. Okay. I think that a lot of it had to do with just kind of going historically, the building of online fandom spaces, because that happened very early on. Like, before you had like your internet, like your social media and all of that, you had internet chat rooms and people kind of make their own web page. Sometimes it was like the pre-Discord server. I had a friend in high school who just made a web page, and our friend group would use it and write Star Wars fanfic back and forth, or just talk about stuff that had happened earlier that day at school. That was really common. And like going even before that, you had mailing lists. Star Trek was probably the first of what we would consider like a fandom, where
Yeah.
there are understood tropes and it's like bringing people together and they're forming these lifelong friendships and sharing stories, like people writing stuff out on typewriters and mailing it to each other in folders. People would write zines and like, you know, this is like the 60s, 70s. And so like this has all been going on for a long time, but when you started getting these internet platforms that got bigger and bigger, like chat rooms to LiveJournal to Tumblr to Discord to everything else, people were making these connections because of this, because of a series and or like a story that meant something to them, and they would be talking about why the story means something to them, but they would also be talking about like their own experiences in life and getting to know each other. And in a lot of those relationships, a lot of those communities, you started getting a lot of people recognizing, all right, well, this thing that I thought was kind of unique to me isn't just unique to me, or this thing that I thought was common to everybody apparently isn't common to everybody.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you also had, like, explicitly queer communities kind of doing the same thing. Like, there were already gay alliances and trans groups and all of that. So they were all meeting up just to talk about their issues. But a lot of gay people are into nerd culture. A lot of queer people in general are really into nerd culture. And so you got a lot of cross-pollination there. And a lot of kind of newer communities ended up growing out of that. So, like, just as an example for me, I think one of the most kind of textbook examples of something like this happening is with the asexual community. Because there's been, like, I'm aromantic asexual. I'll get into what all of that means later. But it's, as an identity, it's something that's kind of difficult to recognize in yourself, because it's hard to prove a negative. So like I just kind of thought for a really long time that I had some kind of affect issue. Like, I don't seem to be as interested in any of this huge part of life that I have been told is fundamental to human biology and also spiritual experience, and I just don't care. Yeah. And so, like, the asexual community, when I found it, was kind of in its, like, earliest phases. There had been people who had studied human sexuality and gender and all of that for the better part of, like, well over, actually, a century before that point, who had recognized that in the groups they were studying, there were some people who just didn't seem to be straight or gay, or, like, they weren't celibate, like, for religious reasons. They just weren't engaging. So, like, that's kind of been something that's been recognized for a long time, but it wasn't until internet communities started being built that people started looking at each other and being like, okay, so this is, like... So there are some variations here, but those variations also seem to follow patterns. But I'm not the only one, and maybe this isn't something that I need to, like, fix about myself, you know?
Yeah. 100%. It's one of those weird things of... And you get it as a child. You're very shielded as a child, as much as, you know, whatever happens in our personal lives. As a child, you have no idea what the fuck is going on. Right. And then you become an adult, you discover the internet exists. Maybe not in that order. And you then realize, well, maybe I am, you know, maybe I don't identify with anything. Maybe, you know, this is me. Maybe I am allowed to not be interested at all. And I think it's it becomes not harder, but a lot easier to recognize when you're around a lot of other people.
Yeah, definitely. It's like learning a language of, like, it's, I don't know, it's somehow the immersion and kind of going back to fandom stuff, that does become immersion, because since so many queer people just across that entire spectrum are into nerd culture, because nerd culture, some younger listeners might not remember this, but being a nerd used to be like a bad thing. Like, that used to, like, Marvel, like, there used to not be a Marvel Cinematic Universe that, like, is now as complicated as the comics ever were. Like, like, that used to be a lame thing that you kept under wraps. So, kind of like being, you know, gay or trans or anything else.
Yeah.
So, people who were already kind of hiding something about themselves would then form these communities and find some comradeship. So, like, a lot of fandom communities are involved in transformative works like fan fiction or like fan art, but a lot of them are also engaged in critical analysis or considering, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, like, in the Harry Potter fandom, for instance, you've got a lot of people who are like, you know, it's not completely unfeasible that Harry Potter could be of Indian ancestry. And then they'll kind of discuss, like, what if? You know, what if this was the case? What if Hermione was explicitly black in the series? Like, how would she be seeing the world? Like, from that perspective. And so you get these really interesting conversations about how people's experiences differ across various demographics, be they racial or cultural or in terms of gender and sexual identity. So, like, you get a lot of conversations about that. You get a lot of people in the queer community recognizing some of their own traits in a character and being like, oh, that character's a trans guy. Like, I've done that, you know? So you get, like, a lot of the community has become kind of wrapped up in fandom stuff, and a lot of fandom stuff has become very wrapped up in discussions of queer identity stuff that in many cases has ended up kind of growing beyond just fandom spaces and into wider conversations.
Yeah, definitely. It almost then starts spilling out, you know, as you're saying, you know, into those wider conversations, and you get to the point where the conversation becomes not a fandom specific conversation. It grows into, like, nerd culture conversation to a cultural conversation.
Yeah, like representation. Talking about representation, because so much of how culture changes its ideas around the differences between human groups does come from representation. Like, Will and Grace is this old sitcom that was about, like, a woman and her best friend is gay. But it doesn't sound exactly groundbreaking to us, but this show was from, I want to say, the 90s? And so, like, that was a big deal then, and you had people who, in day-to-day life, you would have considered raging homophobes, who got into Will and Grace, and they didn't immerse themselves in queer theory because of a sitcom, but they're a little more open to seeing people differently. Star Trek, once again, Lieutenant Uhura was the first time many Black Americans saw a Black character, a Black actress, in any kind of a role that wasn't service industry, or just suffering in general. It's like, this is a competent like, linguist who's highly professional and highly skilled, and it's like, holy shit, all of a sudden I'm seeing myself. And
definitely.
Like, to go back to asexual stuff, I didn't find asexual stuff through fandom, but I found it through a Google search of symptoms of a psychopath. Because in a lot of cultural media representations, the only person that you ever see not caring about romantic anything, not being interested in sex, being just coded as sexless, just in general, or loveless in general, you get your supervillains, your androids, your aliens, and your serial killers, and that's kind of it. So I figured, like, I'm 19 years old. I'm in a dorm building kind of that like most of my friends all lived in. Most of them are in long-term relationships or trying to be in long-term relationships or torturing themselves over the fact that they're not in a long-term relationship. And I'm just kind of looking to the future of, one day all of my friends are gonna have someone. And when am I going to want that? Because once they all have someone, people just stop giving a shit about their friends and only focus on that one person in life, because that's how life's supposed to work, right? That's how that goes. That's the healthy way to do things. Am I wrong? Am I wrong here?
No.
So I'm sitting there just all depressed, and I'm like, why don't I want this? Why can't I make myself want this? I've never, I'm bad at it, and I didn't even know that I was bad at, how can you be bad at wanting something? So in a moment of frustration, I'm looking up, am I evil? Is there something fundamentally wrong with my sense of humanity? Granted, that's not what psychopathy actually is, but that's another representation issue, because that was all I knew. And eventually, through a bit of Google searching of kind of trying to narrow things down, I came across the AVEN page, which is the Asexual Education Network. And they had only, I'm 19, so this was, how old was I when I was 19? I want to say 2012. So they'd only been in existence for 4 years at that point. And I didn't think that asexual applied to me at first, because I do have a libido. That's again kind of a sub consideration with that. I'll get into that later. But through asexuality, I found out about aromanticism, and I just remember breaking down in tears. And I'm not a person who really cries much, but it was just it was relief followed immediately by grief, because it was, I can stop trying, I can stop hating this about myself, and I can stop being afraid of one day wanting this thing that I just don't want and becoming fundamentally different from how I see myself. And then it was immediately followed by, but that's not going to change anything. It's not going to change it's not going to change the fact that I'm going to end up alone. And since then, I've found multiple groups of friends at this point. I'm still friends with a lot of the people that I lived in that building with. Some of them have since gotten married, and are very happy, but they still spend a lot of time with their friends. They still make a concerted effort to reach out to people. Currently, I'm living in Richmond, which is very far away from where I went to school. I've got a different friend group here, the ones that I do a lot of the podcasting stuff with. A lot of them are married to each other. I'm friends with all of them, and we all manage to, not even manage, we all actively just enjoy spending time together and still do it. Yeah. So I think that's something about society in general that's kind of been changing with the last couple generations, which is a huge relief, because I was genuinely terrified 12 years ago that I am just going to die alone. Great.
And we're seeing that more represented in our pop culture, as much as, the sitcoms such as, Friends or How I Met Your Mother are all about those romantic relationships. The more core uniting part of it is that they're all friends. And regardless of the romantic shenanigans that were happening, they all, hung out together. Right. And enjoyed each other's company.
Right. And, I think there's been we're kind of inching toward a shift in cultural thought that your romantic partnership has to be not only the most important one in your life ever, forever, but the only one that should matter at all. No, I have friendships that are as important to me as family relationships. I have friendships that are more important to me than many of my family relationships. And I don't think that finding a romantic partner would make me care about them any less at all, and I don't really see myself seeking out or trying to be in a long-term relationship. I just don't think I'd be happy doing it.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's heartening to see people go, oh, it's all fine, it's all sorted, but it also is scary. And as you said, 11, 12 years ago, it's scary going, oh, I have no desire to be in a romantic relationship with somebody. But it felt like society was pressuring you into that rather than just, having, letting you live your life without anyone harassing you or bits and pieces.
Right. I get a lot of sympathy. I don't talk about my identity very often, just because I don't feel like explaining this to most people. A lot of people get kind of, like, when I did try, a lot of people would get, like, visibly distressed the more and more I tried to explain, like, no, really, I'm fine. I'm completely happy not falling in love or not wanting to. And it's just, it's really alien to a lot of people, I guess, because the prevailing response that I get is kind of cautious sympathy. And most of my family, I don't bring it up to them, so a lot of holidays I'll go home or go visit with my mom and be like, is there anyone special yet? Like, I'm 30, there's not gonna be. Yeah. It's fine. Hey, do you want to hear about my job? Do you want to hear about the apartment that I have by myself with no roommates? Because it's dope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's very frustrating. We brushed on it with Christina especially, but, like, it's very frustrating sitting there and then kind of being pressured into, oh, have you sorted your life? And their definition of sorting your life is different to, your definition, and you're sitting there going, no, because I have completely different priorities than what you want from me.
Right.
It's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. And it can be kind of frustrating on a personal level because it's like certain goals are sort of built into your expectations of what your life is going to be. Like, oh, well, you go to school and then you go to college and then you get married and you buy a house and you have kids and then you buy a bigger house and you rent the old house out and exploit someone who lives there. And, like, that's kind of how you assumed stuff was going to go growing up in the 90s. I don't know how it is now, but that was what I was assured was going to happen. So now that I don't really want, like, that kind of big step, which would be very helpful with the financial stuff, to, I don't know, maybe buying a house, and if that ever becomes a thing again economically. I hate being American.
Yeah.
But, like, so it's just, like, I'm at a point in my life where a lot of people who haven't gotten there but who want to are panicking about it and just, like, really trying to make it happen. And I'm trying to, like, I still need something to propel forward motion, but I'm kind of at a point where I'm sitting here like, all right, well, I need something to want, because I already don't want that one thing. So that's it comes with its own complications. Like, it's not something that I would change about myself, but it does. The fact that everything is already so built around the assumption that everyone's going to want to be in some kind of relationship somehow is, like, that's not going to work for me. So there's no way around it, but it's just the little ways that everything is kind of set up, assuming things about everybody.
Yeah. And so then how does your asexuality intersect with, has that changed the way that you interact and appreciate, as we said, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, that stuff that you really loved, engaging with from a very young age?
I don't know if it's necessarily changed things, but it has informed my experience a lot. I was always kind of impatient with poorly written love stories, which a lot of people are, I just think for different reasons than me, because I think a lot of people's complaint when there's just a poorly conceived romance thrown into their action movie are like, that's being just thrown in there to appeal to the girlfriends that the guys that were actually trying to make this action movie appeal to brought along. And then the girlfriend is sitting there thinking like, I don't need this. I actually wanted to see this movie because I wanted to see stuff blow up. Assumptions being made about people. But for me, my problem with a lot of love stories is that, like, especially when it's not a story that focuses around it, is just this assumption that it's gonna go there. Everything's gonna go there. Even historically, it's been like, a attractive male character and an attractive female character have met, so I can see where this is going.
Yeah.
Either they're going to get together, or there's going to be a lot of tension about teasing whether or not they are. And that's like all heteronormativity, and so now you've got kind of the bigger orientation groups coming out. Like, you're getting more gay representation, and that's great. But a lot of those are just set up as romantic stories. There's not a whole lot else going on, so I can't really connect to that kind of a story. I appreciate gay rep in I appreciate a gay love story in fiction, but if it's like a Hallmark movie that's about they're a lesbian couple and it's Christmas, I'm just okay. I'm not interested in seeing this play out because I can't. That's not what my family's like. That's not, and I just don't. I don't care, and I don't connect to anything that these people want. But in a lot of the fandom communities, you get especially fan fiction. Like, people are there's a deep iceberg when it comes to fan fiction culture. But you get a lot of people writing something, playing in like a fictional sandbox that you already love, and then they'll be doing something really interesting with the world and the story and how things could play out, and then they'll get two characters that they're like, you know what, these two weren't conceived as being in a thing because that would be gay and we can't do gay, but I think that they would be a good couple, so let's go, we're gonna do a fun adventure and it might lead to them banging. Strap in. So to speak. So I enjoy that kind of thing, because then it's like, all right, well, this is being presented to me in a way that it's being given to me with stuff that I'm already interested in, the story that is being played off of. And also, a lot of the actual romances are written with consideration to who these characters are and how they interact, what their dynamic is. So it's actually an interesting dynamic to me because these two seem like they've got chemistry. Definitely. Like, this is a relationship that is built, that starts as friendship and builds from there. And my friendships are incredibly important to me, so I appreciate something that is a friendship that then just deepens in a particular type of devotion. But I also just really like asexual, some characters I just read as asexual. Luke Skywalker. A lot of people have very fond memories of the old extended edition Star Wars books where Luke Skywalker's married to this sexy assassin. And, she was cool, but I didn't really... I think that Luke makes more sense just obliviously wandering around the universe. Yeah, he's just... Go back to the first movie, watch the original Star Wars. He thinks the Princess Leia is pretty, but mostly he's just like, I just want to go on an adventure, I'm Luke, and I'm bored.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, we don't have to force everyone into a relationship, and I think more representation of not even just, yes, asexual people, but not even that. People who aren't ready for a relationship or aren't, you know, the who may be, you know, interested in women but aren't interested in, you know, settling down or anything.
Yeah, like you don't have to live your life any way that you don't want to live your life. You don't have to have some kind of identity or label to not want to be in a relationship if you just don't want to be in a relationship. Like, it's fine. It's really fine.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where I think that you get to, you know, you get to the point where we are now, where we're seeing a lot more people being represented in culture and stuff like that. So now it's about finding good representation rather than tokenistic or poorly written representation of, you know, who you identify with or who you want to, you know, see out of these characters.
Right.
While also, you know, having development and everything else. Exactly.
And that that comes with a lot of its own issues in just the way that fandom discourse goes, because sometimes like everyone's experience of being queer in whatever way that they're queer is different. Like people from different gay communities can have different experiences. Like someone from Atlanta is going to have a different gay experience than someone from LA or someone from Brisbane. Like but in a lot of your TV or series or books, you'll get one particular kind of relationship or one particular kind of person living one particular kind of life, and people who don't necessarily have that experience of being that orientation will be like, well, that's not my experience, so this is bad representation. Or I'm just tired of seeing this many stories with this one kind of representation, so I'm going to call this bad representation and be an asshole to the author, who is, in fact, this orientation, or might just be closeted, or might have done a lot of research. It really doesn't matter. The main point is that once you have there's not a whole lot of representation out there, so the solution isn't yelling at people trying to give it to you. The solution is just have more. Like, the more diverse stories we have, the more likely you are to find the one that relates to you. But not every story has to relate to everybody. I'm sorry, more stories don't relate to you personally, hypothetical person. But we're all working on it, okay? We're all trying our best, and so are you. Just fucking have some grace.
It's just so annoying.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting to interact with. It's exhausting to watch happen.
Yeah, it's frustrating as well, because you're sitting there going, oh, you know, on one hand you're like, I appreciate that you've put the effort in, and then, you know, everyone else is like yelling about it and mad, and you go, but like, they've tried. Like, no one's gonna be perfect the first time. Was Baz Luhrmann a perfect director the first time he directed? No, there's plenty of things that he did wrong, plenty of things that he did, you know, that were problematic, but you've just got to accept the fact that he's developing, or you know, for example, Rick Riordan, and like reading those first 2, maybe 3 books of the Percy Jackson series, there are points where you go, that's not quite right. That may be a little bit off kilter. There might not be the greatest. But then you've got to go and look at the current work and go, oh, but it's working now. Right.
And like that ties into a much bigger conversation about media analysis, specifically literary analysis, like, can I interact with this work even though there are problematic elements, or if the author was or is problematic? Like, I'm doing Dracula Daily right now. Bram Stoker, huge asshole. Dracula Daily, P.S. It's so much fun. They just mail you, like, they send you an email of every entry that makes up Dracula because it's an epistolary story.
Oh,
it's very fun.
Yes. I love that.
But again, Bram Stoker, like the whole like underlying theme of the story is fear of Orientalism and like a vague notion of Jews.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what you're basing this opinion off of, man. Just you need to get off that island. You need to travel a little bit. Anyway.
Yeah.
But
I did not finish Dracula. I had to read it for class, as a part of an advanced English unit that I took, and most of us got through the first third. I think I got through the first half. And you get towards the end, you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
yeah.
The end is the best part, to be honest. Them racing around London, trying to fix stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it was... but in many ways, it's a better story than you would expect from seeing, like, all of the adaptations, because, like, Mina Murray is actually an incredibly smart and cool character with her own, motivations. She wants to be a journalist. She has a best friend that she talks to all of the time. Lucy is always kind of done as an airhead seductress in a lot of the Dracula adaptations. No, she's just a fun, cool, bubbly girl who happens to have a lot of guys chasing after her. And all of the guys chasing after her are really nice, and she's having trouble picking. She's, both of these female characters, every once in a while you get Bram Stoker's voice coming in being like, oh no, I've made them too cool so that now they're unfeminine, so I have to make sure to reinforce that, oh no, they submit to men's whims, though. But ultimately, I think he created these incredibly well-rounded female characters almost by accident. There's a cowboy in that book. No one knows about the cowboy. A whole cowboy.
It's fucking... Dracula is... You could almost read it as a comedy. I definitely think you could.
Oh no, most of all of the people doing Dracula Daily right now are making a lot of memes about it, because the whole first part of that book is Jonathan Harker being kidnapped and slowly realizing that he has in fact been kidnapped.
The whole kidnapping shenanigans. It's just like, what the fuck?
Well, he just threw my mirror out the window, so now I can't shave. Entry 2 for that day. Just saw him crawling down the walls like a gecko again. That's cool.
That's strange, but I'm not going to do anything about it.
But, you get these conversations about, is it okay to be interacting with this story even though there's all of these underlying incredibly racist and in some cases even homophobic themes? And the answer is that's kind of up to you. You can interact with a story that has imperfect elements, ones that bother you really deeply, and really enjoy other elements. You can take good lessons away from stories that also have bad lessons in them and trust yourself to tell the difference. That kind of, that's kind of where I land with Harry Potter right now. Obviously the author is a huge asshole. Do I think that she always was, and it was lurking deep down within and she let it out on purpose just to fuck with us? No. I think that she was, at the time of the writing of that series, a kind of blandly white liberal feminist good person, ultimately well-meaning. And then when the trans visibility movement kind of started up in the early 2010s, she started hearing a lot of rumbling from a small but vocal subset of the queer community at the time.
Yeah.
Who were influenced by second wave feminism and radical feminism, which I won't get into too far into the details, but they basically take a lot of patriarchal assumptions and then turn them, or go harder but turn them around, where men can't be trusted to not rape people, so we just have to stay away from all men. All sex is bad. Like, you should, even if you're not actually attracted to women, you should only have sex with women because it's the only kind of moral sex to have. These are the kinds of mindsets that you get. Like, the whole concept of political lesbians is something you can look up for yourself.
Yeah.
But these are people who were seeing the rise of acceptance that maybe the gender binary doesn't mean as much as we think it means. Maybe it's not as innate to the human experience and human desire as we think it is. Well, that's not very convenient to their mindset, which is that being a woman makes you inherently better than anybody else. So now trans women are a huge threat, and trans men are just women who are confused, and they're all trying to abuse us. That's the main thing, is that they're all trying to hurt women. And J.K. Rowling hears this and gets kind of lets herself get sucked in, basically, and now she's just absolutely doubled down. But like, I think that before that point, if you had just been like, oh yeah, I'm trans and this is my experience and this is how I feel, I think she would have gotten it. And unfortunately, that's not how that fucking shook out. But, you know, I can read those books now, knowing that she's a person who meant well for the most part, maybe wasn't as introspective as she could have been about a lot of stuff in the writing of those books. Hashtag house elves. But I can still take a lot of good literary lessons away from the story, and a lot of comfort. Like, she does a really good job of setting up things that are going to be important later. She does a really good job of fleshing out side characters, or just creating side characters in a few quick strokes where it's like, all right, I know who Ernie Macmillan is. Like, I don't know much about him, but I've got a good idea. Like, all right, this is that guy's personality. I've got it in 2 sentences. She's really good at that. She's good at writing a whimsical, satirical world that kind of lampoons British culture of the 90s. She did a great job of all of that. She's not a perfect person. By no means is she a perfect writer. But you can interact with Harry Potter as a series, not give it money, and take a lot of valuable lessons away from it as a storyteller, as a creator. As long as you go in knowing, you know, what her deal is.
Yeah. I think it's the really hard part about it all as well, is that you've got to, like, and I hear people on the who don't understand make these complaints that, like, everyone is cancelled. I'm like, no, not everyone is cancelled. And just because, like, someone may be cancelled doesn't mean that you can't consume that content. But you've got to find a way to consume content in a way that you feel okay about. You know, if someone has done something that is actively hurting, you know, people you know, and you want to stop supporting them, you're more than welcome to do that.
Yeah.
Just because you do it doesn't mean that everyone else around you has to do it. But then, you know, and then finding ways to access this stuff. And, you know, the whole restricted section is a lesson, I think, in consuming content in a way that you consuming content in a way that allows for the content to still be consumed while still avoiding giving money to the person who's hurt everyone, and giving a platform to that person as well, because the whole point is to not give a platform to her. The whole point is to enjoy the content, have fun with it, create original content from that, but not be a part of, you know, not self-fulfilling, but gratifying that person.
Yeah. I think the Anne Rice fandom kind of perfected that whole that kind of mindset of I am enjoying this series, but I'm actively pissed off at the person that created it. Like, Anne Rice, if you're not aware, was the creator of Interview with a Vampire, which a lot of people have seen that movie and don't realize the true extent of the book series. It's a lot. And pretty much all of it is deeply, deeply homoerotic, to the point where it's like, this can't possibly have not been on purpose. And then Anne Rice became a born-again evangelical Christian, and not only denounced her old works, but denounced anyone making fan content of those works, to the point that she would send her lawyers after them, to try to get anything that they did, shut down, or even, get them fined or arrested. A lot of, in the fan fiction world, to this day, a lot of the times you'll open something up and see an author's note at the beginning, like, hey, I'm just doing this for fun and not earning money off it. Okay, thanks. Don't arrest me, please.
Yeah.
That's what that came from. That is entirely Anne Rice's fault. And the day she died, a lot of the internet was making jokes about it, and a lot of the people making jokes about her being dead were people who liked Interview with a Vampire. So that's kind of the relationship that I've got with J.K. Rowling right now. Maybe, will she turn herself around one day and see the light? Maybe. Until that day comes, assuming it ever does, I am okay with enjoying Harry Potter as a series that was written by a nice person who became mean before they became mean.
Yeah. And, obviously written in the late 90s, early 2000s as well.
That's...
all the other...
I mean, watch the Star Wars prequels, and you'll see a lot of the same issues that people complain about with Harry Potter. They're valid complaints. It's just any content that you interact with, if you want to interact with it critically, you need to understand what era it's coming from, and kind of what the expectations were at that time. In a lot of ways, Harry Potter and Star Wars prequels both failed, because there were people trying to make more diverse or less offensive content at those times. But they generally didn't have Harry Potter money or Star Wars money, so...
Yeah, 100%.
It's... I wish I could remember who said this or where I read it, but it's always stayed with me. It stayed with me since college, specifically when we read Moby Dick. Once something has become great, it ceases to matter whether or not it is good. That's
100%, yeah.
A lot of people with Harry Potter specifically will be like, there's a lot of much better series about kids going to some kind of a magical boarding school that you could be reading. It's like, yeah, I'm absolutely sure that that's true. But you can't act like Harry Potter was never a big deal, culturally, because it got most of my generation that reads got into reading because of Harry Potter. Sorry.
It's important. It's important
right.
to
It became,
who we are.
Right. It's not a perfect series by any stretch of the imagination. And yes, many people did the same thing and did it better and with better cultural sensitivity. And you should absolutely check out those stories. But I enjoy Harry Potter because there's a nostalgia element for me, and I think that examining the way that culture influenced it and the way that it has since influenced culture is academically interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really, this is why I really love consuming content, because everything is dated. Everything has, a time period it's from. If you're listening to this podcast, 20 years in the future, well done for being so patient with whatever crappy technology we're dealing with. But also, it's dated. There's a date that it's been released. There's a time frame in which it's been recorded. And it's the same with movies. It's the same with every bit of content that's on the internet. It's been catalogued. And so you can then grab a very specific context and go, oh, okay, so it's come from this period of time. This is what was going on. This is why these comments were made. Who knows? Maybe in 20 years' time, J.K. Rowling is, back being the beloved author she always was. Or, in 20 years' time, the world's ended. Who knows, you know? And so because everything's catalogued, you can appreciate it for what it is and go, okay, I really enjoy this, but, you know, in a modern day context, it probably wouldn't be made.
Right.
You think of all those really crappy movies that were made, you know, those early 2000s rom-coms that I have watched way too many of in the past few weeks. Or, you know, a little bit of everything.
I think, honestly, I think a great example of what you're talking about are, it's a very specific genre, and I only know of like 2 movies that fit in it, but Drag Queen Road Trip. There are 2 movies off the top of my head, which are Priscilla Queen of the Desert, which takes place in Australia, and there's, it's got like Hugo Weaving as a drag queen. It's great. Yeah. And you've got Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything. And both of that's like it takes place in like the middle, like the Midwest of the States. And I think I read like an interview or something about, might have been Priscilla Queen of the Desert, where someone was like, do you think that you could, or like that you would have acted in this movie, or how do you think this movie would be done differently today? And I think it was Hugo Weaving who was like, I don't think this movie would be made today, but I do think it was important at the time. Because at the time, even though none of the actors in those 2 movies were gay or trans or drag queens, as far as I know, those movies did become very important to a lot of the queer communities at that time because they were positive representation, and that was so rare.
And it's one of those things, and I think, you know, as someone who follows media quite closely, you know, yourself and myself, and we get this image. I have this conversation with my brothers all the time, where it's like, we're watching a movie and they're like, oh, but this is terrible. I'm like, appreciate it for what it is, not what it could be, you know? Yes, there's issues. Yes, we should be critically evaluating it, but don't write it off just because it's an early 2000s rom-com. I'm going to keep coming back to this. I don't know why. My brain is obsessed with them. While You Were Sleeping, there's another one. There's one with a young Ryan Reynolds and the love interest is a Canadian citizen. It's like, anyway.
The Proposal? Is it The Proposal?
No. He turns out Ryan Reynolds' family is like rich.
Are you sure it's not The Proposal? Because that one definitely has Betty White playing Native American.
And she does
it's not like she's doing, like, she's just dressed as Betty White, but she is doing like what looks like like a traditional dance and is probably just not. I don't know. Yeah. But it mostly kind of like it's like it's awkward. And like,
yes, it's completely inappropriate, but that scene is also hilarious because there is so much shit going on, and it's just you know, and it's everything has value. I think, you know, regardless of whether it's disgusting or it's really, really great. Everything has a value in, you know, either it, you know, adds to the culture or everything else, or it's, you know...
Yeah, like, some things, I think, take you... I think some things that, like, you could look back on as offensive, like, just Priscilla Queen of the Desert or Tu Wong Fu, it would be very easy for, like, a young queer person now to watch those movies and be like, they're the butt of jokes, and they're making all of these jokes about men dressing up as women, and none of these actors are even trans, and this is so offensive. And... yeah, if those movies were made now, those would all be huge issues. But acceptance, like wide cultural acceptance, has steps. And if something took a group that dealt with a lot of shit up to a step where either they were dealing with a little less shit or just got to see themselves not being the bad guy. Just got to see themselves portrayed sympathetically, even if there were, like, some cracks in there. Maybe those were even, like... I think that if someone like watched like an older queer person, someone who's like involved in like the drag scene, were to watch either of those movies, I feel like there must have been people who were involved in those communities, involved with writing those movies, because a lot of the jokes are things that older queer people would get as like, oh, haha,
100%.
like that's us. So, and ultimately, like just being able to see that there are options outside of whatever your frame of reference has been growing up. Like a kid, like some kid in the Midwest seeing Tu Wong Fu, One Way, One How, and seeing their like gay anything for the first time, maybe hasn't even heard about like gay anything outside of a fire and brimstone church sermon about Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
And then they see that movie where like three kind drag queens give a whole town a makeover and make all these friends. Like, first of all, oh my god, that's something that I connect with. I didn't even know. I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe I can, like, that gives somebody the seed of connection that can lead them to go on and find themselves. Like, that's what stories are for examining ourselves and finding ourselves. And if you don't examine the stories that you interact with, whether they're, even if you're somebody who goes out of your way to not interact with anything problematic ever at all in any way, and only wants to interact with good, pure content, even if you're not examining that stuff, you're not, like, what are you getting out of it besides something to pass the time?
And part of it is also, like, learning what not to do as well. It's like, you know, we've seen this, awesome. It's a great lesson on either what not to do or what it was like for people who had to trailblaze this kind of representation, and what they had to operate under. Well, we've completely run out of time. We've gone on such an awesome deep dive, and thank you so much for providing a little bit of perspective on this. Obviously, this conversation could keep going for hours. There's so much nuance to it, and I hope people who are listening have appreciated a little bit of, you know, the added complexities of especially queer representation in cultural stuff, especially nerd culture stuff. And thank you, Hayley, for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
Yeah, where can people find you on the internet?
As I said at the top of the episode, if you want to hear more of my dulcet tones, mostly just rattling off obscure Harry Potter trivia facts, you can find me on the restricted section and the Movie Night Crew. And you can follow me on Twitter, if you must, at the Rit to Wit. I'm the creepy doll picture.
I always appreciate it because it's distinctive enough that I know exactly who's tweeting. I go, yep, awesome, it's Hayley. And has there been anything you've been reading, watching, listening to, consuming that you want to plug?
Well, I just plugged Dracula Daily on another restricted section thing, so I can't do that right now. But I did actually, you know what? I was going to say something, but a lot of people are watching it right now anyway, and I don't want to give myself away. Children, if you're listening to this podcast, you might not, there might be some things that you're still figuring out in life. And one of those things might be how to pay for all those streaming services. Because everything that you want to watch seems to be on a different one. And every time there's a new thing that you want to watch, they've created a new one specifically for it. If you are sick of making accounts for things, and or don't want to keep paying corporate overlords, there's this thing called Putlocker. We old people used to use it a lot back in the 2010s. If you can't find the links to the things that you want to watch on Google anymore because they scrub those links, but if you go straight to the website and look for what you're looking for, are you watching something on your computer? Yeah. Is it great quality? Not usually, but it's like normal TV quality. And you can usually find pretty much everything, and it doesn't load super slow like it did when I was young.
I was about to say, that was my only issue with Putlocker, was that it was just took forever.
Oh yeah, it was. You could measure the load times on the geological timescale when I was in a dorm. But it's I was using it for some stuff earlier, and it's a lot faster now.
It's probably also handy for things that have not reached a streaming service yet.
Mm-hmm.
I know there is plenty of things that I want to watch that have not quite reached streaming services. Not new stuff, old stuff that just they've not been bothered to upload.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, do love some good Putlocker stuff.
Fight the man.
Yeah. You can probably tell around what time this was recorded, because only within the last 24 hours, I think there was some social media posts from Hayley about Putlocker, which is, look, it's great. I fucking love it.
It's a lot of people have forgotten about it, and the ambiguous they don't want you to know about it, but it's out there. It's out there still.
Yeah, I think I remember reading something about them they had to go find somewhere else to be based out of because Sweden changed their copyright laws or something silly.
I'm sure.
Well. Yeah.
It's nuts.
This week, I don't have a lot to plug because I am in university, what people would call final season. Other than the fact that I paid $500 for a passport last week, my bank account is getting a little bit more empty as things kind of start happening, which I don't recommend. Please don't pay $500 for a passport unless you're desperate like me. But I'm actually probably going to plug The Proposal. To be honest, it is hilarious. There is a lot of good, fun stuff, and the twist, I don't know, through the first act is great because it really kind of changes that power dynamic, and I love it.
I do remember it. God, it's been so long since I saw that movie, but I mean, Ryan Reynolds, come on. It's going to be a laugh.
Yeah. Young Ryan Reynolds as well, he's still pretty good looking. I definitely suggest you go check that out. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hayley, for coming on the podcast. I really love chatting to you. I apologize for this being so late into, it's been over a year. I've been thinking about doing this for months and months and months. But we definitely have to get you back on sometime.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. You can follow the podcast socials at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter. You can send an email to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com. Please give us a review on iTunes or Spotify to help others know that you love this podcast. The art was done by Opia. You can follow them at opia_art_. Opia is spelled O-P-I-A. Feel free to message them about making art for your project. Our music was written, recorded, and edited by Isabel Strauss-Ritz. You can find Izzy at Kane_I. That's I is in the body part. On Instagram and Twitter, and on YouTube at KaneI with no spaces. Feel free to message her about making music for your project or editing your podcast. Content and Capable is proud to be a part of the Movie Night Crew Network, which features Of the Eldest Gods, a chapter-by-chapter Rick Riordan pod full of myths and legends.
What would you do if there was a terrifying prophecy about you?
Or you had to go on a perilous quest to save a friend.
Or everything you loved was in danger, and the world was about to end?
Whoa, slow down, Charlie. You know what to do when all that crazy stuff happens, right?
Call Ghostbusters?
No, you listen to Of the Eldest Gods.
Right. Sorry, Ray. Y'all can listen to our podcast about the Rick Riordan books.
We'll cover each chapter and talk about some of the fucked up mythological context.
And we'll probably get cursed by Zeus.
Let's hope that doesn't happen this season.
Catch Oteg on all your podcast platforms.
And eat some blue food while you listen.
Wish us luck while we survive the apocalypse.
Charlie.
What?
Content and Capable is a podcast all about answering the question, how do you adult? Don't forget to rate and review, and I will see you next Monday for another episode.
That movie sucked. I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Awesome.
Yes, you do have to get me back on sometime.
Help.